At 19, Adithier had nowhere to go. No home, no money, no family, just a crumpled bag, a fading notebook, and a heart that refused to quit. Only months earlier, his life was normal. He lived in a 2-bedroom apartment with his parents above their family stationery shop in Pune. Business was modest, but steady. They had dreams, small ones, but theirs. A newer scooter, a vacation to Mahabaleshwar, maybe one day opening a second store. Then the storm came. First, it was competition, bigger shops, online orders. Then rising rent, debts. His father borrowed from local lenders to stay afloat. When the business collapsed, everything went with it. One morning, after an argument with a loan shark who had come banging on their door, his father clutched his chest and collapsed. A cardiac arrest. Gone. Just like that. Adithier's mother, broken and scared, moved in with distant relatives in a village. She begged him to come along, but Adithier couldn't. Not because he didn't love her, but because he felt he had something to prove, something to fight for. He promised her, "I'll figure it out. I'll make you proud." With no degree, no savings, and no backup, he took a train to Mumbai, the city of dreams, where thousands came to rise, and even more disappeared in the chaos. He didn't know a soul there. He just had one lead, an unpaid internship in a small logistics warehouse in Navi Mumbai. And that's where his story truly began. The warehouse wasn't a workplace. It was a maze of stacked boxes, forklifts, clanging trolleys, and sweat-stained vests. The air smelled of cardboard and motor oil. But to Adithier, it was shelter. Every evening, after the staff clocked out and the lights dimmed, Adithier would quietly slip behind the rear stacks, rows of soap bar cartons stored for local distributor. There, hidden from view, he created a makeshift bed, flattened cardboard, a folded hoodie as a pillow, and an old bedsheet he'd found near the loading bay. It wasn't much, but it was his. He ate whatever was left behind, half a pack of biscuits, a banana, or a cold Veda pav forgotten in someone's bag. At night, he listened to the warehouse breathe, the low hum of cooling units, the occasional rat scurrying between crates, and the wind rattling the sheet metal roof. And yet, every night, before drifting to sleep on that cold cardboard floor, he would stare up at the rusted ceiling beams and whisper to himself, "This isn't my end. It's my beginning." Because deep down, Adithier believed something most wouldn't dare to. That rock bottom wasn't a wall. It was a launch pad. While others saw a broken boy curled up between boxes, Adithier saw a blueprint. He wasn't just stacking crates and logging shipments. He was observing systems. He noticed how items were miscategorized, how delays cost money, how simple rerouting could save hours. He kept a mental note of every inefficiency. And during breaks, instead of scrolling on a phone, he didn't own one. He borrowed a warehouse assistant's smartphone to watch YouTube videos on supply chains, warehouse layouts, and logistics tech. The security guard once asked him, "Why are you watching all this giant stuff?" Adithier smiled and replied, "Because one day, I'll run something bigger than this." The guard laughed. Most people did, but Adithier didn't mind. He had grown comfortable with being underestimated. In fact, he preferred it. One night, during a rainstorm, the warehouse flooded. Water pooled in the corners, and the staff was told to take the next day off. Adithier stayed. With nothing but a floor mop and a few bricks, he redirected the water out, salvaged packages, and even made a temporary fix to the broken drainage pipe behind the building. When the supervisor returned, he was stunned. "Who told you to do this?" "No one," Adithier replied. "It just made sense." For the first time, someone looked at him not as a burden, but as an asset. They offered him a small monthly stipend. And more importantly, they cleared out a dusty office storage room, placed a mattress inside, and told him, "It's yours if you want it." It wasn't glamorous. The window didn't close. The fan barely worked. But it was warm. It was progress. And to Adithier, that was everything. He taped up posters from magazines he'd found, quotes about ambition, diagrams of warehouses, even a picture of an old building with the words Adithier Logistics scribbled above it. He wasn't just surviving anymore. He was building something. Each crate he carried, each barcode he scanned, each minute he spent observing routes and racks, was one step closer to something bigger. He knew no one was watching. No one believed in the warehouse kid with dusty shoes and second-hand dreams. But he didn't care, because belief is loudest when it's silent. And Adithier, he was preparing to roar. During the day, Adithier wore the same dusty uniform and steel-toe boots as every other warehouse helper. He stacked crates, moved pallets, scanned barcodes, and unloaded trucks. The work was hard, sweaty, and repetitive. Nobody asked questions. Nobody gave answers. But Adithier, he was always watching. He wasn't just lifting boxes. He was mapping them. In his mind, he followed every item's journey, from arrival to sorting, to dispatch to delay. He memorized what came in late, what left early, what always got misplaced. He noticed how certain vendors always missed deadlines, how the shelving layout forced workers to walk twice the distance they needed to, how a simple traffic jam near the main gate delayed outbound trucks by 40 minutes. And every day during his 15-minute chai break, he'd sit behind a stack of cartons, pull out a torn, restained notebook, and write down everything. Arrows, timings, bottlenecks. His observations looked like battle plans, except they were for cardboard boxes. But he needed more than instinct. He needed knowledge. So one evening, he struck a quiet deal with the night shift security guard. "Bia," he said, "can I borrow your old smartphone for an hour each night? I'll return it fully charged." The guard, amused, agreed. And just like that, Adithier found his university. YouTube became his professor. He watched videos on warehouse logistics, inventory flow, supply chain case studies, how Amazon optimized their fulfillment centers. He watched warehouse tour vlogs, paused them frame by frame, took screenshots, drew comparisons. And the more he learned, the more he saw. One day, while sweeping the floor near the back dock, Adithier paused. Something didn't add up. The outbound goods were being delayed every morning because they had to be moved from the farthest shelf to the front, a 6-minute walk each way, times 20. That night, after hours, Adithier shifted a few pallets to closer shelves, just the fast-moving ones. He labeled them neatly, rerouted the floor arrows, and left a note. "Test this tomorrow." The next morning, the warehouse supervisor caught him mid-move. "What are you doing?" he barked. Adithier didn't flinch. He stood up slowly, notebook in hand, and said, "Just trying to save you 30 minutes on each batch run." The supervisor laughed out loud. "You, with your mop and notes." But he didn't move the pallets back. And when the shipments went out faster that day, everyone noticed. Adithier's small layout change cut turnaround time by 18%. The supervisor didn't laugh after that. Within weeks, more of Adithier's suggestions started being implemented. A new sorting routine, color-coded crates, better shelf labeling. The manager even asked him to present a small efficiency plan to the warehouse owner. Adithier walked into that meeting with dusty shoes, a tucked-in shirt, and his ragged notebook. He didn't pitch himself. He pitched solutions. The owner was stunned. "Why hasn't anyone told me about this guy before?" The next week, Adithier got his first real promotion. Not much, just a slight raise. But more importantly, the old storage office in the corner of the building was cleared out and handed to him. It had a broken fan, a dusty table, and a torn mattress. To Adithier, it was a palace. He finally had a pillow, and a door to lock, and a light to leave on while he scribbled plans deep into the night. He taped printouts from videos onto the wall, charts, warehouse layouts, supply chain graphs. He wasn't just a worker anymore. He was building something. By now, others in the warehouse had noticed. Some called him sir as a joke, but some genuinely came to him for help. How do I apply for a vendor license? Where do I buy barcode scanners? What's the cheapest way to get tracking labels? Adithier helped everyone, because he remembered what it felt like to have no one. Within 6 months, he had saved the warehouse over 2 Indian rupees lakhs in efficiency gains. The owner offered to sponsor him for an online diploma in logistics and supply chain management. It was the first certificate Adithier had earned since 10th grade, and he wore it like armor. Soon, suppliers began requesting to deal with him directly. "You're the only one who understands both the paperwork and the workflow," one vendor said. By age 24, Adafier had gone from floor sweeper to assistant operations coordinator. And yet, he still slept on that mattress in the office. Not because he had to, but because he wasn't done yet. He used every free rupee to build a prototype idea in his mind. A smart warehouse toolkit for small businesses, manuals, layouts, software dashboards, inventory calculators. Things that didn't cost 10 Indian rupees lakhs to implement. He'd been to enough poorly run warehouses by now to know the problem was everywhere. So he saved. He sketched. He learned. The guy who once borrowed phones now began building software. The one who slept behind shelves now dreamed of owning rows of them. Because Adafier knew something that his coworkers didn't. He wasn't just fixing warehouses. He was building an empire. One floor tile at a time. At 22, most people are figuring out their path. Adafier was building his. After months of sleeping on storage room floors and fixing other people's mistakes in silence, he launched a humble side hustle with a bold name. Quicksort, a local consultancy that helps small businesses organize their storage spaces and streamline their supply chains. He wasn't backed by investors or connections. He had a rented bicycle, a second-hand smartphone, a laptop borrowed from his cousin, and a heart full of fire. He began cycling around town, knocking on the doors of kirana shops, textile go-downs, toy wholesalers, and small distributors. He offered to help them cut time, reduce clutter, and improve their stock movement for 500 Indian rupees per visit, sometimes even less, if he saw they were struggling. Most people ignored him, but the few who said yes saw results. Adafier had a gift. He could see flow where others saw chaos. He didn't walk into storerooms looking at what was there. He looked for what should be there. How shelves could be shifted. How stock could be categorized. How time could be saved with just a few chalk marks and better logic. He started drawing small layouts for store owners, suggesting simple systems for tracking goods with colored tape or handwritten charts, even suggesting how delivery boys could follow better pickup routines. And slowly, word began to spread, not through ads, not through newspapers, but through WhatsApp forwards, rickshaw drivers, chai shop gossip. That boy with the cycle, he saved me an hour a day. Ask the Quicksort guy. He knows space. Didn't he used to sleep near the loading dock? Then came his break. A struggling pharmaceutical distributor in the outskirts of Pune heard about him. Their inventory was a disaster, expired meds, late deliveries, zero categorization, and staff constantly missing dispatch windows. The owner called Adafier in. The office was larger than anything he'd worked on. And for the first time, he hesitated, but only for a second. That night, he returned to his tiny flat and stayed up for 3 straight nights, sketching out a new layout system. He studied pharma cold storage best practices, read packaging guidelines, and even consulted a friend studying biotech, just to understand temperature-sensitive logistics. What he delivered wasn't just a neat layout. It was a full reorganization plan, with color-coded racks for medicine types, FIFO rotation for expiry-sensitive goods, a barcode-based manual logging system, a new shift roster for faster turnarounds. The result? Turnaround time improved by 40%. Wastage dropped. Lost stock was recovered. And the client saved lakhs of rupees within the first 2 months. The owner was stunned. He didn't just pay Adafier. He offered him a 3-month contract to consult full-time and handed him keys to a vacant storage office in one of their properties. The irony. That office was in the same warehouse block where Adafier once slept behind stacks of cartons, dreaming of just having a door to lock. Now, he wasn't just walking in. He had the keys. He moved in the very next day. There was no fan, no AC. The paint peeled off the walls. The light flickered when it rained. But Adafier didn't care. He brought in 3 things: a plastic table, 1 chair, and a whiteboard. On the whiteboard, he wrote just 3 words: speed, space, scale. Those weren't just goals. They were laws he would live by. From that 100-square-foot space, he began calling old clients, following up on leads, and planning future upgrades to Quicksort's service model. He'd draw new designs at night, then test them at client sites during the day. He started mapping warehousing challenges across industries, how textile shops differed from cold storage, how Kirana shops worked differently than furniture depots. Each layout, each tweak, each conversation. It was all data for his future product. He didn't know it yet, but Quicksort was no longer just a service. It was becoming a system. As weeks passed, more clients rolled in. Not because Adifir sold hard, but because his work sold itself. Clients told other clients. Suppliers told distributors. And slowly, that one-chair office began to look less like a room and more like a launch pad. And in the late hours, long after the shops had closed and the warehouse lights dimmed, Adifir would sit at his whiteboard alone, looking at those three words: speed, space, scale. He didn't fully know how to scale yet, but he knew how to move fast. He knew how to make space. And now, for the first time in his life, he had both, and he was ready to build. By 26, Adifir's startup, Quicksort, was making waves. It had started as a simple consultancy for improving warehouse efficiency, but word had spread fast. His low-cost systems, razor-sharp planning, and no-nonsense execution had earned him clients in 5 cities. Small e-commerce sellers, local manufacturers, regional distributors. Everyone wanted a slice of what he was building. But Adifir wasn't satisfied with service contracts. He didn't want to just help warehouses. He wanted to own them, not just metaphorically, literally. So, in what most called a reckless move, Adifir pooled every rupee he had. Savings, small project earnings, even money from side gigs. Then, with the help of a local angel investor who'd seen one of his talks at a logistics seminar, he borrowed the rest. His target? A cluster of rundown warehouses on the edge of Pune's industrial belt. They were abandoned for a reason. Crumbling walls, peeling paint, broken shutters, faded signage, leaking roofs, rats in the corners, power issues, water problems. And worst of all, no one believed the location had potential. Contractors laughed. Brokers warned him off. His own friend said, "Bro, it's a bad bet. You're burning money." Adifir didn't argue. He just walked through each dusty aisle and whispered to himself, "This is where it begins." He called the space the grid, and he got to work. Day and night, he oversaw the reconstruction, personally inspecting concrete mixes, helping install shelves, testing fire alarms, replacing damaged beams. He hired electricians to rewire the whole block. He brought in pest control teams, painters, tilers, plumbers, solar technicians. To cut costs, he even worked as his own project manager. In a year, the place was unrecognizable. Gone were the broken shutters, replaced by sleek roller gates. The power grid was now supported by solar panels. AI-powered inventory tracking systems monitored stock movements in real time. Shared cold storage units were installed for pharma companies. Docking bays were redesigned for maximum vehicle turnaround. Even the lighting was motion-sensitive, cutting power waste by 30%. But the best idea? Adifir didn't rent to just anyone. He created custom packages, logistics as a service, for small businesses that couldn't afford their own space. For example, a farmer cooperative used a cold unit to store perishables before weekly exports. A D2C beauty brand leased just 500 square feet with integrated shipping software. A regional bookseller used shared manpower for packaging during peak season. Instead of tenants, Adifir created partners. People who had once been turned away from modern logistics hubs now had access to smart warehousing. And word spread like wildfire. Within months, the grid was full. Within a year, there was a waiting list. The same broken-down warehouses he had bought for a fraction of market value were now fully booked and buzzing. Logistics companies visited to learn how he was doing it. Newsletters wrote about the smart warehouse revolution in Pune. Startup blogs covered Quicksort as the tech-first logistics dark horse. By age 28, the grid was valued at 85 Indian rupees crores. But for Adifir, the number didn't matter as much as the symbolism. Because that block, that space, it was where he had once swept floors, where he had once slept in the corner on a torn mattress, where he had once scribbled notes while trucks rumbled outside. Now, he didn't just walk those halls. He owned them. And he wasn't done. Adifir began replicating the model in other cities, Nagpur, Indore, Jaipur. He created a framework, revived dead warehouses, equipped them with tech, enabled small players, run lean. He even created a small internal academy, training blue-collar youth in warehouse tech, basic coding, and process optimization. Many of his first hires were people just like him: school dropouts, helpers, forklift drivers, even an ex-night guard from a different site. Adifir knew that success wasn't about glitz. It was about grit. He wasn't on magazine covers. He didn't wear suits. He still arrived at sites on his old bike, laptop in his backpack, sleeves rolled up, dirt under his fingernails, because he believed something deeply. Legacy isn't built in glass towers. It's built in places people forget to look at. He didn't want to just scale revenue. He wanted to scale dignity, in a space most people saw as back-end, invisible, or unimportant. And the grid? It became more than a logistics hub. It became a symbol that no space is ever truly wasted, that no opportunity is ever truly gone, and that even a boy who once slept between crates could build a business that redefined the block. Adifir didn't just fix the warehouse. He flipped the entire game. And he wasn't even close to finished. Today, at 31, Adifir doesn't just own that warehouse, the one where he once slept on a torn piece of cardboard near loading docks. He owns 5 more in the same industrial zone. Each one is now part of a larger network, a logistics ecosystem called the Grid Network, built under the banner of his company, Quicksort. But this isn't just about property. It's about purpose. Over 100 people now work full-time under Quicksort: warehouse staff, software engineers, data analysts, operations experts, delivery managers, and customer success reps. But what makes it special isn't just the tech or the headcount. It's the culture. Because in one of those warehouses, room 3B, to be exact, Quicksort still maintains a small dormitory. Not because it's needed, but because Adifir insisted. And in those rooms, some of today's employees sleep, just like he once did. Only now they have real beds, clean sheets, hot meals, showers, and a rooftop recreation space. Because he remembers what it felt like to build your dream on an empty stomach. Outside that very first warehouse, the same one he once mopped, fixed, and rearranged in silence, there's now a metal plaque mounted near the entrance. It reads, "In memory of the nights I dreamed bigger than my conditions." Adifir, that plaque is no decoration. It's a reminder for every visitor, every worker, every young dreamer who thinks they have too little to start. And Adifir, he still walks through those halls weekly, not as a CEO with a security detail, but in jeans, sneakers, and a plain black t-shirt, often holding a notebook, often talking to staff. Because for him, this isn't a place of business. It's sacred ground. A year ago, he launched Quicksort Flow, his own logistics SaaS platform, built from everything he'd learned on the ground. It's now used by over 800 small and mid-sized businesses across India. From fruit exporters to regional garment brands to medical equipment distributors, Quicksort Flow helps manage shipments, inventory, warehousing, and customer communications in one seamless interface. It's modern, it's multilingual, it's affordable, and it's giving small businesses the power that was once locked behind million-dollar systems, just like he dreamed. But perhaps the most powerful part of Adifir's story, what he gives back. Every month, he conducts free workshops for warehouse workers, helpers, and delivery staff, teaching basic process automation, safety standards, mobile tech, and career pathways. No long lectures, just real, useful skills. He's also funded 85 scholarships, and counting, for the children of warehouse employees across Maharashtra. Kids who would have never imagined college are now dreaming of engineering, design, logistics, and entrepreneurship. Some of them even intern at Quicksort during summer breaks. Adifir often says, "I didn't build a company. I built the kind of ladder I wish someone had left for me." He's been offered office space in Mumbai. Investors have dangled the promise of global expansion. But Adifir has never left the block. When asked why, in a rare interview, he said, "Because this block didn't just break me. It built me. And now I own it, not for power, but so no one else has to sleep on cardboard to chase their dream." On Sundays, he still visits the rooftop above Warehouse 1. The same roof where he once sat, watching the stars and wondering if he'd ever escape. Now, he sometimes brings his team there. They don't talk about revenue or ROI. They talk about origins. Because the diffier knows, success isn't about how far you've gone. It's about how far you're willing to reach back and pull others up with you. Final words for the viewer. In a world chasing quick wins and instant fame, a diffier chose patience, principles, and purpose. He proved that even if you start with nothing, not even a bed, if you keep your eyes open, your heart grounded, and your mission clear, you can build something that outlives you. From floor sweeper to founder, from forgotten worker to logistics visionary, from a boy with no roof to a man who owns the block. And he's just getting started.